studios.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560. The Answer.
560, The Answer, Chicago's Morning Answer. Chris Kroc filling in for Dan Proft today, Thursday, Friday. Dan's back on Monday. So, we're continuing on with the discussion about the federal government going in and enforcing federal law with ICE, DHS, and people literally attacking and going after our federal officers for enforcing federal law, the Supremacy Clause. How back in the Civil Rights era, you had governors refusing to integrate their schools. And so then you had President Eisenhower, you had President Kennedy send in troops to enforce federal law. Also, two separate columns, one in the Contrarian and Victor Davis Hanson separately writing the same thing about the Civil War, and that we are literally seeing that happen when we have local authorities and officials in Illinois and in Chicago refusing to comply, and in fact even threatening or vowing to go after and arrest ICE officers for doing their duty, or DHS officials for doing their duty. Very similar. So before we take your calls, I wanted to talk to Chief Weitzel, retired Riverside police chief, who I love when we get Chief Weitzel to come on the show, and here he is. Chief Weitzel, thanks for joining us again on Chicago's Morning Answer.
Hey, good morning, Chris, and thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. What do you think about that concept? That with what we see local officials threatening to have Chicago police or whoever it be threatened to, not the officials themselves or the police officials, but are Brandon Johnson, Pritzker, talking about going after ICE, prosecuting ICE, and such like that. What do you think about looking at that compared to whether it be the Civil War or civil rights being enforced by the federal government, sending in troops?
Well, that going after ICE from the local perspective, so say Illinois wanted to go after them or Chicago, that's not going to happen. It may happen that they do a publicity stunt on that, but they have no authority to, cross that jurisdictional line between local authority and federal authority. And yes, the federal government has been in Chicago and nationwide and been used in other outrage type of things. Here's a really clear example. They used them in the DNC in Chicago, right? And everybody loved it, right? They were here, and the CPD officers I know, the Chicago police officers I know, told me that surrounding the United Center for miles, it was the safest it's ever been, period. So, they sunk money in, they sunk federal, there were troops there in addition to, there were federal National Guards at the DNC, and it was okay to do that, right? But it's not okay to reduce violent street crime in Chicago.
Exactly right. Absolutely correct. I wanted to also ask you about this, too. You tweeted this out. The government and mayor's anti-ICE rhetoric is endangering CPD officers. Their words fuel chaos, leading to injury. We had a Chicago cop at the Little Village shooting that we just had several days ago. Cop hit by a car. Chicago PD hit by a car in Little Village with that. And I just can't believe some of the stuff, the rhetoric I'm seeing out of the mayor, out of our governor, etc. Tell me about that.
Yeah, not only is it affecting the federal agents, right? They've had federal agents shot at, federal agents hurt. Now, for those individuals that think it doesn't affect local law enforcement, when Chicago is called to assist with crowd control, they have now had officers seriously injured, as you just mentioned, in the car crash. And let's be clear, look at the rhetoric both the governor and mayor are using. They're using terms like ICE is snatching people off the streets. They're kidnapping people off the streets. I mean, that type of rhetoric fuels lawlessness and it fuels attacks on police. And they don't care. These individuals going after ICE, they don't care if you're a local Chicago police officer, if you're a suburban cop, if you're a federal agent. They just look at you as an arm of the government, and they're just going after you, physically attacking you.
That's what's interesting to me, too, because these officials are, Mayor Johnson, Governor Pritzker encouraging people to attack ICE by saying that they're terrorists, they're terrorizing, etc. You would think that somebody would be willing to attack and or harass a federal officer would really not be delineating between a local police officer and a federal officer, because if it's okay to go after a federal officer, why wouldn't it be okay to go after a local officer?
For sure. You could see the videos out there of the little village that you just talked about.
Yeah.
You could see when Chicago was called to assist with crowd control, they were angrily attacking the Chicago police, both verbally assaulting and then in some cases physically attacking them to try to get at the federal agents behind them. But that's all for, there's a purpose to that. They want the news media to cover it. They want it to be anti-government, anti-ICE, for sure. But now these individuals, these local police officers in Chicago, who you're paying your taxes to protect you, you're going to be outright attacking them? Come on.
Chief, it's disgusting to me to see you have, like Pritzker and Johnson. It's disgusting to see them not say anything ever. I've not heard anything ever from them criticizing the people who are attacking ICE or DHS, or in the context of attacking ICE or DHS, and then when Chicago PD or other local police departments show up to help enforce the law and protect the community and, from themselves perhaps. I've never heard Johnson or Pritzker attack people who are throwing paint cans, throwing bricks, and attacking federal law enforcement or even maybe local law enforcement in the same instance. Have you ever heard them denounce any of that or call out to people for their rhetoric and their violence and their attacks?
Never. It's not politically in their agenda to do that. And think about that. These are the governor. Those are his officers in his state. The mayor, these are his officers. The aldermen, they all live in Chicago. These officers are your neighbors, your churchgoers with you, your baseball coaches, your football coaches. These are the officers that you employ. And the mayor of Chicago, Johnson, and the governor, they say nothing against these individuals and groups that are attacking law enforcement. And believe me, they're well organized.
So I wonder how bad would it have to get before they finally say something? To me, this is leading somewhere, and it's leading somewhere bad. And I mean, I just wonder at what point will they maybe say something? And I would think that even if it goes to the worst places where we lose a law enforcement officer's life, God forbid, that even then they would still somehow blame ICE and the federal government. That's what I think.
They will blame ICE and the federal government, and you're right. Well, there's already been those police officers injured in that crash the other day. Yes. They were seriously injured. So we've had police officers, Chicago police officers, seriously injured on these protests, which I call riots against ICE agents. But unfortunately, Chris, if we see a police officer shot or killed by this, that is what's going to change. And does it need to take that? Of course not. But in Chicago, that's what it's going to take. But I'll tell you, you're going to see mass exodus from Chicago Police Department. You're going to see people not wanting, highly motivated to do the work. All they're going to do, Chris, is show up and put in their time.
Absolutely. And you know what else, too? These people that we're talking about that are harassing and attacking, and you have Pritzker and Johnson not saying a damn thing about them, these are the Democrats' shock troops on the streets. That's what I think when I tell they're absolutely the Democrat shock troops. Yes, and I'm also calling for police leadership to step up. At some time in your career, you have to push back. And I know that, like, the superintendent of Illinois State Police is appointed, the superintendent of Chicago is appointed. Mm-hmm. Their jobs are owed to the politicians that put them in those positions. And they've worked hard in most cases to get those positions. But sometime in your career, when they start attacking the officers, your officers that you're putting out there, you're the leader, you need to push back. Yes. I wanted to ask you about some other stuff, too. You tweeted about this to me was the most hysterical thing in the world. Now, it's not okay to assault an officer, but this idiot, this deep stater in D.C. who threw his sandwich, his hoagie, at the Border Patrol officer. It's just, actually, I got a piece of audio from this guy. When he spoke, when they dismissed the case or whatever, they refused to convict the guy. They no-billed him. Here is this deep stater former Justice Department official or employee who was fired, of course, after he threw his hoagie at that Border Patrol officer. Here we go.
I am so happy that justice prevails in spite of everything happening. And that night, I believe that I was protecting the rights of immigrants. And
he means illegal immigrants, but let's continue.
Let us not forget that the Great Seal of the United States says e pluribus unum. That means from many, one. Every life matters, no matter where you came from.
He's remember there was an illegal that was dragged. He was screaming like a little girl. That viral video that went out, and it turned out that Telemundo and Univision went nuts on this guy. They carried it like wall to wall for 24 hours until they found out that he's a child rapist. But that guy assaulted the federal officer, the Border Patrol officer, with a sandwich, and it's funny because it's a sandwich, but it's not funny because it's assault on a cop. Tell me your thoughts about this, though.
Yeah, I thought it was, they returned to no true bill. I thought it was ridiculous because not only did the courts, but the media, and this was staged. I mean, if you saw the video, it was taken by somebody on their phone. But
right.
they threw it at the federal agent. It's not about the sandwich. It's about being able to physically attack or assault a police officer, in this case a federal officer, and walk away with no accountability.
Right.
That fosters, Chris, lawlessness. And you know where that transfers to? That type of scenario that's being allowed and then no accountability, that trickles all the way down to your local police officer making a traffic stop and individuals fighting with you or arguing with you or assaulting you because they see that on the news and they see, oh, he wasn't convicted. He wasn't even indicted. It just fuels lawlessness and disrespect for law enforcement. And you think you can attack a police officer without any accountability.
Here's what I do like. I like the fact that he was fired from his job with the Department of Justice, which doesn't shock me. He's a deep stater with the Department of Justice. So I like that he lost his job. And number two, I like that he probably paid thousands of dollars to be brought. First of all, he was brought in front of a grand jury on a felony. Then it got bumped out down to a misdemeanor or some sort. But he probably spent several $1,000s on an attorney, and he lost his job. I'm at least happy because I'm going to bet, and I know we don't know this guy, you and me, but I'm going to bet this guy, if he had to do it over again, he would not have assaulted that federal officer with his sandwich.
Yeah, and you know what? You're absolutely right. And you know what I always say? I say sue him. And you're like, oh, that's a crazy idea. But you know what? This culture that you can just attack police and have no accountability is over as far as I'm concerned. Those days are over. And that was prevalent during just after the George Floyd riots. I mean, people were assaulting and getting away with attacking police left and right. Those days are over. You need to be held accountable and arrested for those types of crimes.
Chief, you wrote about the Mamdani effect and how it's going to affect our officers in Chicago and Chicagoland as well. The Department of Community Safety he wants to have to replace police responses to mental health crisis and unaccompanied social workers, civilian transit ambassadors, and not going to expand the force to 40,000 officers in New York City. Pledging to close Rikers Island, calling it a stain on the city's history, talking about reimagining policing, and that cities like Chicago and states like Illinois are going to follow. Tell me about that.
Well, make no doubt about it that police agencies throughout America are watching what's going on in New York with the politics affecting the police. They're going to be, if those policies go through, many other cities and communities throughout the United States are going to say, well, why don't we do that? It's okay in New York. It's past legal challenges in New York. They're doing this in New York. And smaller communities and smaller suburban agencies who don't have the resources, they're going to take these policies and procedures that are put in place in New York, and they're going to tailor them for their own community. And that happens all the time, and that will happen. And, I personally believe that the police commissioner should resign her position.
Yes,
not because
Tish.
she did anything wrong. She's well-liked, well-respected, but there comes a time from what he did, what he said about the New York City Police Department, she should resign. And I would say no police professional, superintendent, chief, sheriff, they should work for that administration.
I agree.
At all, period.
This is going to be a disaster for law enforcement and the people of New York, isn't it?
It's going to be an outrage. They said they had 134 New York City police officers put in their retirement papers the next day after he was elected.
Absolutely. You wouldn't want to stick around there, would you, if you were in that department?
No.
Yeah.
And I know these people. They work a long time to get those top spots, and they're well deserving. But you're in the profession. You can't lead officers and work under his administration. That's not going to happen.
Chief Weitzel, Chief Tom Weitzel, the retired chief of police for Riverside, thank you very much for joining us on Chicago's Morning Answer.
Thank you for having me, Chris. Have a great morning.
You too, brother. All right, I want to get back to your call and talking about this whole Civil War type thing going on, where you have our local authorities and state authorities in Illinois and Chicago literally talking about, you got Brandon Johnson with his pathetic ice-free zones, or, DHS-free zones. Those are going to work as well as his gun-free zones, right? But you have what is very similar to what was going on in the Civil War. Before the Civil War, you have the same thing going on with civil rights era, where you've got local officials saying, no, I'm not going to obey federal law, and no, I'm not going to honor the supremacy clause, which is what I have to do because that's what the laws are. We're going to fight, and we're going to vilify the federal government. We're going to continue with that discussion coming up next. We have several lines open at 312-642-5600, 312-642-5600. This is Chris Kroc, filling in for Dan Proft on AM 560, The Answer.
Before you see it on TV, share it on Facebook, or read about it in the paper. Hear it here first. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Our veterans are our heroes. They answered the call to defend our freedom, putting their lives on the line for our nation. But today, thousands of those brave men and women are facing something no hero should ever face: food insecurity. That's where Farm to Veteran comes in. Through the Fulcrum Farm Foundation, this remarkable organization delivers farm-fresh, nutritious food directly to veterans in need through veteran services and organizations. From greenhouse-grown produce to eggs, they're ensuring our heroes have access to the high-quality food they deserve. But Farm to Veteran can't do it alone. They need our help. Your financial contribution directly